Good day. Welcome to another session of the Conversation podcast. Today I'm privileged to host Golden Party President, Mr. Jackson Silavwe. Mr. Jackson Silavwe, I'd like to welcome you to today's conversation, and Zambians would like to know, who is Jackson Silavwe? They just see you, now you are a co-leader, in the United Kwacha Alliance.
Yes.
They see you when you issue those statements as Golden
A
Party President. Let's understand, who is Mr. Silavwe?
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much. Jackson Silavwe. Well, I was born in Kamchanga, Mufila.
Okay.
Almost 4 decades now.
Yeah.
Yes. From my father's name was Japhet Silavwe. A main bus driver. He was the first generation from my family, from my father's side, having come from the village, from Kwaskalembe, Bala, Northern Province. So when he was about grade 8 or grade 9, or let me say grade 7, he joined his elder brother who was already working in the mines as a mine captain, Franel Silavwe. So they came, he joined him, and he came and started school at Butondo. For those who know Mufila.
Yes.
Butondo, that's where he wrote his grade 9, all the way. There was always an argument in our home. My mother, on the other hand, would say, "You failed grade 9." My father says, "No, I didn't."
I stopped grade 9.
I stopped grade 9. Eventually, he taught himself driving. That's why I said he was a driver. So mainly when we were born, he was already driving first vans, then eventually buses, and all that. That was his profession until he died. At some point, he worked for Supreme Furnitures, if you remember. He worked as a head driver there. But when Supreme closed, he went back to buses. My mother's name is Noreen Mwansa Mumba. Born from my grandfather, Mishek Chiwasha Mumba, was actually a very close friend to Dr. Kaunda, as well as Simon Masaka Pwebo.
So your mother is from the political family?
Very political. In fact, in the 90s, remember when Dr. Levi Mwanawasa wanted to challenge Chiluba for presidency? If you remember that period, my mother found herself on the wrong side of the camp. She was supporting Mwanawasa.
Yeah, in 1995.
Yes.
Remember, President Mwanawasa had resigned.
Exactly, yes.
In 1993.
And he wanted to
He was
challenge,
replaced
yes.
by General Godfrey Mianda.
Yes.
And he went into some form of silence, but remained an MP for
Exactly.
So in 1995-96 convention for the MMD, he sprang up and said he was going to challenge the incumbent president of the Republic of Zambia.
My mother was on the side of Mwanawasa. She
was on the right
Mwanawasa.
side.
Yes.
I like people like that.
And she composed all these songs. She would sing them on top of her voice at home. You know, Hilo Mwanawasa Kesa. And you know, Dr. Chiluba's supporters were upset.
Oh yeah, Chiluba.
So they threatened that we were going to burn my grandmother's house because we were staying with my grandmother. Oh, my grandmother was upset. She did about we saw. So my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, Mishek Mumba Chiwasha, he was actually a chief at Chiwasha's village, named after ourselves. Apart from that, he was also a governor. Dr. Kaunda appointed him a governor. So he was a governor at one point for Mwense and Samfia. So recently I went to Samfia for the first time, and it was quite emotive for me. I was
to trace your roots back home.
And somebody told me, that's why your grandfather that used to be the governor's house.
That's
where he used to stay. So I've got that background. It was very common us growing up, seeing photos in the 90s of Dr. Kaunda and my grandfather. When he was one of those also felt who was unhappy with Dr. Kaunda at some point. So when Mr. Kapwepwe formed UPP, he actually went and joined UPP to fight his colleague, his friend. Yes. And Dr. Kaunda was not very happy. So when UPP was eventually banned, life became very difficult for him because literally he couldn't get a job.
Yeah, they were all banned.
He was a unionist on the copper belt. If you see my maternal family, we've got strong roots to Chingwala. So you find even the oldest, like now the oldest in our family, Bishop Shadrach Mumba of the New Apostolic, they still say stays in Chingwala. So he couldn't stay in town. And you know he had 11 children. And so he made a decision. Just like Kapwepe. Remember Kapwepe went back.
Yeah, went back to Chiluba.
So even him, he did the same. He went back. During that period, of course, his uncle died. And it landed on him that he should become a chief. So he became James Chuasha. Yes, at the village and became a chief. So it was very common for us to see pictures of Dr. Kaunda here, what and what growing up. I did my primary school at Washuka, primary school right there in Kamchanga, Mufrila, just a few meters from where we were staying at BC 160. At some point, my father left from Pika. I want to say this because it will interest you. Left from Pika, and that time I was just little boy. But I could remember one or two things. So my mother remained with my grandmother. Says no,
yeah.
So when he arrived, after a while, my mother decided, let's join him in Mpika. So when we went to Mpika, all of a sudden we found this white man, tall, very handsome, and we would chase after him, and he would reach his bag and just throw sweets to us, and we pick them up. Dr. Guy Scott.
Wow. That's how you met
Dr. Guy Scott when he became member of parliament.
Yes.
Is it from Pika Central?
Yes.
We used to stay in Casanova, just by the corner, next to the cold storage. Remember the cold storage days?
Yes.
We used to have those cold storages in towns. Just by the corner, that's where we saw. I remember Dr. Guy Scott from there when the currency was being changed. We were so excited. We were babies. You know, we were so used to that money for Dr. Chiluba and Dr. Kaunda's face. So I remember those times when I was very young.
Very vividly. Yes.
So at some point, again, we went back to Mufrila. That's where I went all the way from grade 7. It may interest you, this story.
Yes.
My first attempt, because my parents, even the coming back from Mpika was not very smooth. By that time, they were having problems. So by the time I was reaching grade 6, my parents decided to just call it quits. So it affected me, but then I didn't know, because I'm the firstborn from the family of 7. And when mom left the house, I became like a de facto mom to my siblings, making sure that early in the morning they divorced. Yes.
Okay.
I remember one time my teacher, Mr. Chewe, once called me and said, Jackson, I'm concerned. Your grades now punch. But I was a child. Though I'm in politics, I can be very introvert. So I didn't want to talk about it. So I just said, no, it's fine. And he said, no, I'm concerned. He kept on telling me that I'm concerned. He even actually said, I want to see your dad. But I never said anything home. And I was this above grade student.
Yeah.
How I started, for example, my grade 1 in Pika, I was at nursery. And when my teacher, Mrs. Ann, went to my farm, to mom, and said, Jackson cannot be in nursery. Take him to grade 1. So I just went to grade 1 without really being in nursery for a long time. And that was my track record. So I was very confident. I never knew how to fail. I've never fallen. My numbers were always good. So when Mr. Chewe in grade 6, 7 told me that
your grades are falling.
What is he talking about? You know? Because Dad, you know the nature of a bus driver, you have to come back late.
Yeah, and leave very early.
So when mom left, I would actually wait for my dad past 22 hours because you have to make sure that his meals are warm. So I would put 2 braziers, one for his water to bath, and then the other one, I do those, you know, I put a pot with water and his shima on top. We use metal plates, if you remember, yes.
Yeah.
So I have to, that activity, but immediately he comes in and just put on the table, he tell me go to sleep. But I would wake up again very early, prepare my brother and sister to go to school. I had to change the time for me to go to school because I used to go in the morning. But when mom left, I had to change to go at 12 to 17. Yeah, so just to make sure that my siblings are well prepared. So when the exams came, Mr. Mwamba, Ambassador, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I had missed the cutoff points, I think by 16 or so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, your energies were elsewhere.
Exactly.
To the family.
And I went back, and I remember I was very disturbed, and I went back. It was my first experience in terms of academics to fail. And Dad came that evening. All of a sudden, there was a lot of silence. I remember a lot of silence. I think it was for coming from my inner being. And he asked me, now send my results. I said, Mkwai. He says, now pass. I said, no, but Dad didn't want. And you know, he was an adult, so he knew. So he looked at me, and I was expecting him to be upset.
Yeah.
But when I looked in his eyes, I saw a lot of warmth. And he told me, I know you are very brilliant, and I know the past year, 1 year plus, have been difficult. So let's talk tomorrow. I went to sleep. The following day, he told me, I've consulted my friends. You're going to go to grade 8. So he asked me, what do you think? Then I shocked him. I said, no, I'm not going to grade 8. I'm going back.
To go and rewrite.
Grade 7. Now, in our time, Ambassador, there was a famous word, by repeater.
Yeah,
it was
repeater.
Derogative.
Yeah.
So I had to become by repeater.
It was a stigma.
Yes, it was. I had to become by repeater. And you know, it's not like now where you
but
have...
repeater were usually footballers.
Exactly.
Because
and athletes as well. They were very good at sports.
Yeah, the school needed to keep them.
Exactly.
You know, the older they were, the better it was for them in the school results.
Grade 7, because
they're always older,
You know. And then he told me, okay, no problem, because he knew that I was that type. If I make up my mind, if I believe it's right, he will not talk me out of it. In fact, he's the one who gave us that background. First of all, when we were very young, he made sure that we knew God. Dad, you never miss church. But ironically, he used to miss church because he used to work on Sundays. He used to work from Sunday to Sunday. But if he gets a report that you skipped church, you'll not be friends. So he said, okay, you can't go back to the same school. He knew about the stigma. Which other primary schools do you want to go back? So I told him, I want to go back to the same one. So he asked me, Jackson, are you okay? He used to call me Bamdala fondly. He said, Bamdala, are you okay? I said, no, I want to go back to the same school. There's no way I can fail. So I went back, bought me a new pair of uniform, and I went back. To cut the story short, it was my best year, one of my best years of my education, because I just excelled. Yeah. And when eventually I wrote again, I went to my dream school, Mufila Secondary School. Yeah. I think that year, Ambassador taught me the value of studying.
Hard work.
Hard work. And I had a wonderful teacher, may he so rest in peace, Mr. Wadama Tafwali. We used to call him fondly BM. He literally plucked me from the class where I was and took me to his class because he believed so much in me. And I became one of his best students, together with Danny Sinkala, who is a lecturer at Mufila Teachers Training College. Antonina, she's a teacher. There was Mwenda, these colleagues. And we just formed this formidable force in our class. Yeah. And we used to make sure that even when we write, we used to compete like all the grade 7s. We'll take the first spots. Number 1 is from his class, maybe Jackson, Antonina, Danny, and we would follow like that. But now, there was a time we wrote the MOOC, and BM said, no, there's no way we can have my number 1s but 5.
From one class.
We are going to add the Chibemba. When they added the Chibemba, I went to number 5.
I see, to fail you a bit.
Exactly. So I went to Mufila Secondary School. I was so much ready for secondary. I believe I was very ready. My favorite place was the library. Up to now, I've nurtured the love for reading books and all that. It developed from there. I made sure that the syllabus for grade 8 and grade 9, I finished in grade 8, term 3. Finished everything. So when I went to grade 9, it was revision. I remember before I wrote my grade 9, I went to my father and said, Dad, I think I'm going to get very good grades. Therefore, I go boarding school. So nonchalantly, my father said, oh, okay.
That's good.
So when the results came out, I entered the deputy's office, and he said, oh, by the way, you've got, you still have environmental science book. Can we have it back? I said, yes, I have it. Gave it to him. There's congratulations, you've made it to S1 at Mufila Secondary School. It's a pure class.
Yeah.
He says, congratulations. So I was about to leave the door. Then he said, Jackson, there's yet another envelope. I believe it's from the Ministry of Education. So I was wondering, what is it? He handed it to me. The first time I saw my name imprinted on an envelope.
Yeah.
So now I'm wondering, and this,
what have I done?
My confusion. What's happening? And when I'd opened it, it was an acceptance letter, clean from David Kaunda.
Wow.
You have made it to DK.
Yes.
So I came out of his office, and my friends were around me, and I'm thinking, what's happening to me? And then I just showed them. I said, congratulations. I walked from Mufila Secondary School to Supreme Furnitures in town.
Where your father was
Where
working.
my father was working then.
And go and show him that I'm the best
to show
student.
you, yes. I was we were about 6 of us from the district, and I was amongst them. We had Arnold Ndumba working at now Mopani Copper Mines. He's an engineer there. We had Christabel Mwela from, not Mufila, but from Kantanshi, still in touch. We had Leonard Kanjibite, we were together at DK. From my class, we were 3. We had also Emmanuel Nkweto, is now ZAF. I think he's a major or something.
Yeah.
Yes. We had myself. So it was, we had Collins Katiete, was my best man at the wedding, but he never came. He remained at Mufila in S1. But eventually, he had made it to come to DK. Eventually, he did pharmacy for University of Zambia. He's now in Livingstone there. He's a senior pharmacist.
So that's how you came to Lusaka?
That's how I came to Lusaka.
Was it your first time?
It was my first time. I came with White Horse. If you don't remember those buses.
Yeah, those buses, White Horse.
White Horse. And it was, and the furthest I'd been from home. Apart from the Mpika when I was a baby. This was coming alone without my father, without my uncle or anyone. I came with my uncle's friend. And we arrived in the night, and the bus under the lights. I was like, wow. You know, it was, I think if I remember, it was along, is it Katunjila Road? I can't remember maybe properly.
Yes, they had one of those private.
Was.
They had one of those private bus stations.
Yes, Katunjila or Katondo Street. I don't know, between these two. And we came out, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. So I came to DK. I applied myself again very well, and I completed from there. You
were coming from a small town into the city.
Into the big city.
And the not political pressure, peer pressure. You are now with children from across walks of life, from the rich, from the connected, the educated. How did you handle that?
We were in the same intake with, if you remember, the former Vice Chancellor, Professor Malama. His son, Chanda Malama, was at DK. We're together. I was with sons of some ministers, you know. And it was different. But one thing, I never went really through a lot of peer pressure because of the background I had. I got baptized in 1998.
Yeah.
And right in 1998...
What's your denomination?
Yes, CMML, Christian Brethren. Now they're called Christian Brethren, CMML, Christians Missionaries in Many Lands. That's my childhood church. So we were very rooted in the Word. And I remember when I came to DK, it wasn't the matter of being maybe sport. And in fact, I believed I was a good influence. Until towards the end. Then again, something happened. My mother then, during this transition, right after I came to DK, my mother, you know, I remember I told you that, divorced, left for South Africa. Then one time, one of my uncles, I was coming from class. In fact, he didn't even come through the administration. He just came straight to my dorm. I found him he was just asking, where is Jackson's place? And they told him it's there. And he just came and told me, I'm just coming in and I'm going to the copper board, but your mother is very sick. I said, what's wrong? I says, she was poisoned. It's Africa. I said, is she well? He says, we don't know what's going to happen. And it again got to me. So the same episode I had
in grade 7.
I've been thinking, I'm going to lose my mom. So it was very emotional for me. And he just he left. No hug, no anything, and he just left. You know? We were raised in that time where a man should not show his emotions.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't go for class. I just packed my books, waited for the night, and went to a place where we used to pray from. We used to call a prayer room. I went there and I prayed and I cried that night. And I said, God, I don't know what my uncle has told me, but I want mom to live. I want mom to see my children. You know. And I believed in my spirit that the Lord had heard.
Yeah.
But then again, there was no cell phone. So I didn't know. How do I get in touch? Cell phones, we just used to hear about them. And now there's a thing about, so they were quite expensive then. They were just coming in. So I began to, again, it got to me. Then all of a sudden I became very angry. I became quite introverted again, until one time a sad incident happened. We were having prep at DK. I went to the boys' room, the toilet, and then this boy, but the light in the room was very dim. So the boys at the attendants, we're in boarding. Instead of going all the way to the urinary, they'll just come and stand by the door, urinate, even if he's urinating on the floor. So this boy came in and urinated on me whilst I was at the urinary.
Yeah.
He just came and stood on the door and just urinated on me. So I went out. When I spoke, he realized there was a person there. So when I came out, I said, listen, look, my trousers is wet. So I said, I think it's only proper you go wash it. I want to take a bath. And there we got into an argument, started pushing, shoveling, and I punched him. And Ambassador, when I punched him, I knew this is wrong. And when he stood up, he was holding his tooth in his hands.
Wow, you had knocked out his tooth.
I knocked out his tooth. And I went to the door.
And must have been a heavy punch.
Yes, I was angry, like I said. And when the boarding master was a teacher just living within the school came, I explained to him. He said, okay, I understand what happened. He was wrong, but Jackson, you are also wrong to punch him. In fact, maybe you should have just come to me. And he said, okay, this issue is that I'm going to punch you. I'll make you clean the entire ablution block. And it's not a good thing.
No.
We used to call it a DK shanking. You were going to shank. Remember that it's actually the brand name of the toilet pants.
Shank.
Now we used to call it shanking. You're going to shank and you're going to make sure you clean thoroughly. So in the night I cleaned, did everything, called him, and he said, okay, well, fine, it's done. It wasn't, I thought the issue was done. It wasn't, Ambassador.
Of course. He was going to report to his parents.
After 2-3, they handled that at the school. They talked to him. We had a very good sick bay and everything. After 2-3 days, I was chosen a prefect.
Okay.
And I wanted it because I thought that we can do some changes in school in terms of discipline and everything. And because of that, some students went to the deputy now this time. But how can you choose Jackson? Yeah. Jackson just knocked out somebody's tooth. So I remember that time we had the deputy, we had the headmaster, Mr. Suluyele. I don't know if he's still at the Ministry of Education now. We had the deputy, Mrs. Mulele. So Mrs. Mulele called me and said, Jackson, is this right? And I said, yes, because I'm not the person who runs away from responsibility when I'm wrong. I own up. I said, yes. And I could see she was disappointed. Yeah. Because I heard rumors that I was the next head boy. And they told me, okay, we'll let you know. They called me for a disciplinary hearing. That the boarding master, unfortunately, couldn't speak for me. That we had punished him and everything. And Mwamba was handed a 2 weeks suspension and dropped as a prefect. I say this because those were very pivotal moments in my life.
Yes.
In terms of controlling my emotions, in terms of, you see, how I react to situations. Sometimes, even in political colleagues, sometimes they say Jackson is very calm. You know, it's because I've gone through things that made me realize that the reaction, my reaction is entirely dependent on me, yes, and it has got consequences. So eventually, of course, I came back. I made sure I was a good boy through and through. I finished on the strong note. My results were very good. I didn't have mentors. When I finished, obviously, I thought, okay, I went to one of my uncles and said, look at my results. And he said, oh, okay, they are okay. And he sort of put it in my mind. I think now you need to work and sponsor yourself to school. So I took his advice. Yeah. And I started doing pieceworks here and there. All as my friends were applying, going to school. He said, maybe your results, they may not put you on bursary. I regret I never tried. You know, but, you know, he was elderly than me. I didn't know the city very well. I didn't even know where Unza was, because even if I was at DK, it was just mainly I come into school, go back to Mofrila for some holidays, remain with the relatives here in Lusaka. So I started working, doing a bit of things, until after 3 years after school, I decided, no, let me go to school. So I took myself to school. Yeah. Paid myself. I enrolled at Zambian Open University. It was just coming in. Professor Dixon, Mwansa, then Dr. Kaunda the was the patron and the group, yes. And it was just coming up, and I went there. And by the grace of God, it was hard, really hard, Ambassador. Sometimes I would, because that time I used to do cross-border trading. So I would go to South Africa, buy a few things, sell here, just like that. Because I was also renting my own small place where I used to stay. And sometimes the driver would announce to say, no, we are not switching off the lights for the bus, because they would have that central lighting, not the ones you have now just on your, where you're seated. Because we've got a student on board, and tomorrow is writing an exam, so please bear with him. And everyone will go like, which one? And they'll see me, oh, good luck, Ukapasa, don't worry. I did development studies. I'm a holder of a bachelor's degree in development studies. Eventually, I graduated from the Zambian Open University. I've got a certificate also in computers. And currently, I'm hoping I should go. I miss school. I miss reading. So I'm thinking of enrolling very soon. The sage you allow. It's and I've been admiring a lot. I love reading. I love reading. I'm never bored when I'm alone, Ambassador. As long as there is a book somewhere, I would read it. If it's the only book in the room, I would finish it, reread it, go back to the chapters I didn't understand until I internalize it. Yes.
Your professional life before we come to the politics.
Yes. No, naturally, I went into business. Because I also come
from there on, in there to survive.
Yes.
Coming from the humble family.
I did have some experience. When I was, after I finished school, just during school, like I was telling you, I was sponsoring myself. First I started with the cross-border trading. Then at some point I've written about it for those who follow me. I've written about it, how one time I invested quite a lot. I had about 2 or 3 weddings who wanted me to give them suits, wedding suits, shoes, and it was a big thing for me. And I bought other things. I was coming from South Africa, and when we were just approaching the border from Zimbabwe, you know, it's a national park before the border. We heard some noise, and the driver stopped the bus, and it was late at night. And he said, I think one of the luggage compartments has opened. So every one of us came out, and it's true. The bags were on the road.
It's true, no longer.
Yes, and all that. So people started picking up the bags. And the unfortunate thing, Ambassador, I couldn't find my bags. And imagine I'm a student. I'm paying my own rentals. By that time, my father started ailing, so I would send money home to cover for the rentals, or maybe just to buy a bag of meal. That time he was not working, he was just home. And I couldn't believe it. And the conductor and the driver were so gracious. Imagine if you've noticed, if you used the bus as you're coming to the border, Livingstone border, you notice that there is actually a very steep cliff.
Yeah.
They went down.
On the side. Yes.
They went down to check, just in case. Until even the driver says, at the end of the day, we'll stop worrying about your bag. We may be caught by a wild animal or something. We came to the border. I was disturbed. Because I was thinking, how do I survive? I never had anyone.
The owners of the wedding.
Yes.
They had given you an order.
They had given me an order, and I was thinking, what do I do? And I started from zero.
Yeah. But
then I thought, okay, I was depressed for a few days, but I told myself I need to pull myself together. I said, what can I do? I said, okay. One of my seniors at church says, no, I've got a small printer, just a printer. What can you do with it? I said, let me come and get it. So I got it. There was a place I used to be found in town. And then when I looked at it, I noticed this small printer. It had, those small printers which just got a scan on top, a scanner.
Yeah.
And I noticed there was an very old computer in the office. So I asked the owner, he's now late, Chief Kalembo. I said, Chief, can I use it? He says, okay. So I started a business center.
Yeah.
And imagine I'm a student. I'm now doing that. And then I'm the one who was typing people's assignments. So students would come and type for them. They would pay me. Before long, I added envelopes. Before long, reams of papers. Before long, pens. Before long, it was a full-fledged business center.
Wonderful. That
before long,
is good.
Employed someone.
To run it for you. Yeah.
It was quite an experience. It was quite an experience, Ambassador. Then apart from that, there was some. Apart from that, as I was just coming close to the end of my university days, I said, okay, I think I've done business, like a business center for a long time. I needed something. So I opened a takeaway.
Oh, good.
What I used to call an outdoor takeaway. I went to Pakro, then Pakro, not Pakra. At the time it was Pakro. Just had a small outdoor outdoor takeaway. Started doing a bit of business. And it was good. And again, not before long, I employed a young lady called Violet.
By the way, you come from Mbala. Your people
We're not
are
for business.
naturally business.
So I employed, this name, I want you to take note of it.
Yeah.
I employed, eventually, when it began to grow, because it was just near Millennium Bus Station, where Millennium is. So I had a lot of bus drivers coming in to eat, It was just simple, sausage and chips, salads, what and what. I made it very simple. I didn't want it something big, bright yellow umbrella, so that even if you're from afar, you could see.
Yeah.
I said, that's Jackson there. And I used to put on the apron and my girlfriend now, my wife, was at University of Zambia as well. So sometimes when she's passing, going home, she would come. So the two of us, boyfriend and girlfriend. Until I thought, this is also taking a lot of my time. And then we're making some good money. I said, no, I want to get someone to help me. So I interviewed a certain lady and told her, okay, you start on Monday. And then one of my friends within the complex where I used to be found said, I heard you're looking for someone. Yeah. There's a young lady I want you to meet.
Yeah.
Interview her as well. So this young lady comes in and I ask her, what have you done? And she says, no, I stopped school in grade 9. And then I said, okay, all right. I was speaking in English. You couldn't even speak English very well. But then my spirit agreed with her.
Yeah.
So I called the one that I'd interviewed earlier and said, sorry, you can't start work. I've just found someone. So she started. I worked with her all the way until I finished my university.
She was disciplined, very hardworking.
I never worried, Ambassador, about anything. If you find her talking to drivers, you'd think it's her business. One day I felt very bad because we used to buy our supplies, potatoes from Buyabamba. You know Buyabamba?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
that time they had not done the tarmac road from Trade Kings there, that tarmac. So because sometimes the potatoes would run out, so she would go into Soweto further there, use that road.
Yeah.
And so one day she missed work. And then I said, okay, let me go there myself. I go get the supplies. So I found that Buyabamba, they were done, so I went into Soweto. Because one time I used to wonder, every time she would come, she would be washing her feet. And I would say, what's wrong? She says, boss, have you gone further? It's something else. And it was a rainy season. When I saw, I just went to bought her gumboots. So every time she went there.
Yeah, so she was protected.
Exactly. At some point, after we closed the business, by that time, I got married. Now I had more corporate-like business. I had my own office at Findeco. It was a nice feeling, Ambassador.
To be your own boss.
My own boss, my own office.
Telling
people, come to my office. That was the time now, I think I even got exposed into politics. So we're coming to 2010 actually. I've got my own office at Findeco. I'm not doing cross-border. I'm not doing takeaway or business. Now I'm into office supplies. Amongst my clients, I've got Rhodes Park, I've got the Kamwala Secondary School, I've got EcoBank, and I'm feeling good about myself. Business is taking shape. Apart from that, I'm also doing real estate by the side. I'm advertising in the Post newspaper then. Clients are calling me. I'm traversing town to show people the properties and what. I thought, it's time to settle. I felt good. But before that, I began to feel that, with the university days as well, I got more interested in politics, And then I asked myself, which political party can I join? Alone. I was not even consulting anyone. And I remember there's a man I've always admired. I said, I think I'm going to join Heritage Party. So in my little office at Findeco, I get my computer and I write a letter to the president of Heritage Party. I want to join. And I ask around. People say, but these days we don't see him. That's 2010 somewhere.
General Mianda, Godfrey Mianda.
And basically, I used to hear stories of how the man would return impressed, how he was disciplined, how he was dropped as VP, if you remember, taken to Ministry of Education and still performed. And I was like, that's a man I want to follow. Because beyond this, I'm a very disciplined character. Very disciplined. Those who've worked with me will tell you, even as ZCID, So I wrote a letter and somebody told me, no, we know where his press ed office is. That time he had Lango Sinkamba, who was a person living with disability. So they said, no, he's found there. So I went to Mr. Lango's office and dropped a letter. And he said, okay, thank you very much. Is your number here? I said, yes. What's your name? I said, Jackson. No, actually, I didn't drop it at Lango's office. I went to the orphanage because the orphanage is well known for the general.
Run by
Kwacha,
the spouse.
Yes. Madam Angela. Mrs. Mianda. So I dropped it there. I think after 2 days, I received a call and introduced himself. I'm Lango Sinkamba. I'm the press head to President, to General Mianda. Can you come to my office? I said, where is your office? He says, Ridgeway. I said, okay, I'll come. I went to Ridgeway. And Lango didn't tell me I'm going to meet the general that day. So we just arrived and he's asking me, I think he wanted to find out who am I.
He was probably surprised by an application letter. In political parties, no one applies by letter.
People just do it.
Just appear and say, So
we are talking, so what's your name? What do you do? What do you do? I said, no, I'm a student. I'm just about to finish my degree. No, really? Okay. You married? I said, no, I'm about to. I've got a very stable girlfriend, and we're planning to marry maybe next year, 2011. Oh, okay. The election year? I said, yes. And then as we were talking, this figure just walks in. Now, the way I'm brought up, I have to stand.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm saying, this is a former VIP of the country. And I just stood up. I said, sir, how are you? He says, fine. He says, you are the one who wrote the letter. I said, yes, sir. Jackson? I said, yes, sir. And he says, no, sit. And we sat. And I noticed during those, we were actually, I think, just filling in each other. Yeah. So he would ask me questions and I was answering. I'd also ask him questions.
Yeah.
And before long, we just began to gel. And I remember after we finished our discussion, he said, oh, where are you going? I said, oh, I'm going home from here directly. He says, oh, can I drop you home? I said, no problem. So he probably wanted to see where I stay. Yeah. That time I was staying in Handsworth. So I got in the vehicle, he took me home. And to cut the story short, I became very close with the general.
Wow.
If you go to the 2011 general election, filing in of nominations, I'm actually on the front page of the Post with him.
Yeah,
He's raising his arms like that. I'm also there. I was very instrumental trying to organize the required number. Yes, the required number of people that you need to register. That time we didn't have the provincial, where you go to provinces, 100 per province. That time we just had 200. You just present
to the Supreme Court. Yeah.
To the Supreme Court. So I was very instrumental because I had also my own area of influence coming from the church side. So I mobilized 1 or 2 buses and they would come in. And if you remember, even the press wrote that his supporters were coming in at snail's pace.
Yes. Because Jackson was organizing
in the background.
No, we need to put it in context for our dear viewers. In 2011, Jackson is a student.
Yes.
The Heritage Party is as waning support.
Exactly.
It's not the Heritage Party of 2001, which became, I think, the 3rd largest political party at the time. And General Myanda has participated in the 2001, he has participated in the 2006 and 2008.
Yes,
so by the time you are coming, the Heritage Party is like on its last legs.
Exactly. We didn't even have the leadership because remember when Reverend Jesus Nyorongo, the
former minister.
Yes, the former minister was Heritage, and then President Levi Mwanawasa got and appointed a minister.
And then later dropped her.
Yes, and General was not happy because he wrote to the president that I've got no problem you taking, but you should come through me. That was his point.
No, the pain we remember in 2002. There's even a famous judgment. You may not remember it. They call it a malaria judgment. Because when President Mwanawasa appointed the 4 MPs from Heritage Party. President General Myanda, and he would take himself to court, went and obtained an injunction from my court judge, I think, Nyirongo at the time. And then it turned out that you can't take, I think under State Proceedings Act, you can't take an injunction against the president. But the judge had granted and prevented the president from taking the 4 Heritage MPs as deputy ministers or ministers. And then the judge issued a statement that he was unwell. He had signed that judgment under duress because he had malaria. But this was in 2002. But
hence the malaria judgment.
Yes. So that injunction was expunged. The judge expunged his own order because under State Proceedings Act, you're not allowed to do an injunction against the president's decision. But I think even that action was later amended. We'll get a lawyer to come and speak to that. So I understand by 2011.
So arising from that, General was not very happy. So he dissolved all the leadership structures countrywide. So when we were coming into the 2011,
where you participated,
there was only the core group. And I was part of the core group. He was calling it the core group. So there was myself, there was a gentleman called Nelson, there was another gentleman called Henry. He became deputy ambassador to India. He was our national secretary. We had another gentleman called Mulenga who stood as member of parliament in Kasama in 2011. There was myself. There were less than 7 of us who were just around with the general, planning with him. And of course, the biggest hurdle, we did not have the money. We did not just have the money. I remember we were itching to go around the country, but we didn't have the money. So even after filing in, we didn't go anywhere, Ambassador. There was just one time the general went to the copper board.
There was no campaign that was
There
done.
was no campaign, really. We didn't do anything. And, sadly, I was called to some sensitive meetings. General would carry me along. Sometimes he would just call you past midnight and say, Jackson, I'm outside your gate. We're going for a meeting. I remember one time we went to meet clergy. We went
But what do you mean,
Kabangwe.
sadly?
Sadly, I say sadly because these are
That
people.
should be
These are
exactly.
people that said, we believed in you. We believe in you, General. And we feel that Zambia will be in better hands. But the sad thing, he would ask them, I don't have money. Can you help? They would say, okay, we'll see what we'll do, but nothing will come in.
Everyone says that
Yes.
people like General Mianda, it's like the president we
That
never
Zambia
had.
never had. I totally agree.
Yeah, because
I
of his
totally
principles.
agree.
He's a very principled man. But unfortunately, politics is driven by you need to have a bag of money.
Exactly.
And until our voters change.
And I'm so grateful that I had an interaction with him. He took me a lot of down memory lane, how he believed also that, not how he believed, he should have been the vice president to Bamanawasa, for example. His story, the story that was told to him is that when President Mwanawasa was looking for a vice president, because remember there was consensus then in the general that the vice president should come from the east, because that given strong support to President Mwanawasa. And he tells me the story that Bampezeni actually floated his name and said, I think General can be a good vice president. And I'm told the one who was sent was a farmer by the name of, former diplomat, by the name of Rupia Bwezan Banda, to speak to who? But General. But according to General, he says, Rupia never arrived. Up to now, never arrived.
He became the vice
when they
president.
reported back to the paramount chief to say, no, I don't know what was said, but what General said is that they might have said, no, he has refused. Then the president says, but you, ulipo iwe. We want one of our sons to become who? The vice. That's how come. That's a story he told me. He says, I was told, and the next thing, he says he wrote even a letter to, he's a person who loves to write.
Yeah.
He wrote a letter to, he told me many things. For example, he told me it was hilarious when he was dropped as VIP. He was telling me I was at Mulungushi Conference Center. Officiating. And I didn't know anything. He says, then I came out. And then he says, Jackson, I found my ride is not there.
Yeah, the motorgate.
It was gone.
The presidential motorgate was not
so
the
then I
vice presidential
panicked. I said,
motorgate.
what's happening? Then someone whispered to me, so no, sir, you've been dropped. You are now... Actually, he says the wife is the one who called. Says, oh, now you are Minister of
Education, and General Tembo is now the
vice president.
The vice president.
So I can only say that's the only political mentor I've had, because there's a lot of things. I did work for him where he would give me letters to distribute for support, and all that. But of course, I knew we didn't do any background. So when 2011 came...
Did you meet Shalakateka? I know I'm scheduled to meet her. I want her to come on the podcast. But did you meet her? Because I want to understand...
we never met.
I want to understand how she takes over the Heritage Party as a new Heritage Party.
I think how she takes over, I think because then the structures were dissolved. So the only thing I would hear, you would talk about eminent persons. Heritage Party had a lot of eminent persons.
Of course, I've just demonstrated.
So you would tell me,
in 2001.
that one was part of... So I think she was part of that crop then, that things, like you said, it was a shadow of itself then. So the only people I knew were the same people that I mentioned.
Okay.
I mean, it was... I remember even after the elections, he came to my home. We were very close. My wife and I were very close to him. He came where I used to stay in McKinney then, newlyweds, And he asked me, Jackson, what do you think? Actually, he told me straight. He says, I think I'm tired. I think now
I'm done.
I'm done. Then he asked me, what do you think should be the transition? So I did a paper on where I thought that that's how the transition should be made. And what I told him, what I wrote in that paper is that you've got the 5-6 of us around you now. I didn't know about these other Bachalakateka, including the Professor Dixon, were all part of these eminent persons who are all part of Heritage. So I said, don't just resign, because then you leave us fighting. But of course, then I thought I wasn't ready. I was still very young. So I said, maybe amongst ourselves, what you can do, since you don't have a vice president, appoint a vice president. Introduce him at a press conference. To say, this is my vice president. Then after maybe a few months or so, step down, then the vice will. Then all of us will come around, then we'll start mobilizing the party. I even wrote how we can mobilize to start preparing for 2016. Then he said, okay, that was the last I saw him.
Yeah.
After the 2011 general election, then he called me and says, I'm going to the copper boat. When I come back, I want to have a meeting with you. That was the last I heard. When he was on the copper boat, he actually called me. He says, I've arrived very well. When I come back, we'll talk. That was the last. Next, I could call. The numbers would just ring. I considered myself very close to even the wife, so I would call her as well. She says, no, he'll call you. So I don't know what really happened. I've got no idea what happened behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. Then after a while, the numbers stopped going through. Until again, remember, I joined via a letter.
Yeah.
Then now I've got a young wife. We're starting life. I said, okay, because in my office, it became a hive of activity at Findeco.
For the party.
I would organize students for him. I organize different groups. They would come and speak at the office. He would speak to them. One day we snicked into Evelyn Horn at night to go address. I made a group where we went and addressed the students prior to during the official campaign period. So I said, no, I think let me stay away from politics. I think it's okay. I think I was also very disappointed because I didn't know. And I'm not into those politics where I just go on TV and say things because I don't agree with someone. So again, I wrote a letter again.
Yeah.
I said, thank you very much. We had very good moments. Yes. This is the first real political experience I've had is with you, and nobody will ever take that away. So I went again.
But the prominent political parties at the time that you joined Heritage Party was Patriotic Front and UPND and MMD. How come you chose that path? Were you not aware?
No, I was actually. The fact, during my student days, there was the famous rebel MPs. Before these rebels you've had in the PF.
Yes.
There was the real rebels of, I don't know if I'm not mistaken, is it Dr. Kalombo Mansa? The North. Yes. Remember the North when they rebelled against him?
Who rebelled against or against President Michael Sata, 2009.
If the record is there, you'll find that I actually wrote as a student, saying that their behavior was uncalled for. That if we are going to lead this country, they should be disciplined in an organization. And I wrote the letter and delivered it myself to the late...
so the history there is that President Manawasa appoints a constitutional commission of inquiry.
Exactly, yes.
And the opposition are opposed to the process.
They're very right.
They want a new constitution, but they're opposed to the process.
Right. Yes.
So what happens is the MPs in Parliament who were PF, he had, I think, 42 MPs.
Exactly.
22 of them say, Mr. President, this is a national matter. So we are going to participate
to the NCC, yes.
To the NCC, despite the directive.
You are right.
From from our party president. So they became rebels. And,
I felt that was uncalled for.
And you were right.
I felt that they should have gone by the position of a party president. If they had any issues, they should have sat. But it was very dirty. Remember, it was in the media. And the Post were peddling it a lot and what ZNBC. So I felt like a patriot. I wrote a letter to him and I delivered it myself. Then there was Mrs. Sakala, the old lady, was the secretary. Tina, there was Tina there. At some point, I think she became ambassador to, is it Brazil or something. So I found those colleagues, Kevin as well, Kelvin, that actually helped me to take the letter. So I delivered the letter. But apart from that, I must also tell you, there was a time when the Post called President Manawasa. Is it Umuelewele or whatever, foolish, whatever. I was not happy. So I wrote to Dr. Membe. I was a student. So I wrote again and I delivered the letter. I said, no, we need to...
So there, Roy Clark, a columnist,
exactly,
famous academic, used to write political satire.
Yes,
so
in the Post.
Manawasa was full of gaffes, many political mistakes.
Exactly.
So he depicted him as this elephant, Mwelewele.
Yes.
And of course, the system didn't want their
It
president.
But this
called
time it
Mwelewele.
was in the editorial of the Post.
Yes, so the Post had to support Roy Clark because the MMD government of President Mwanawasa, Rose, I think the chief government spokesperson, threatened arrest. So you know how Fred Membe would work. In solidarity,
exactly.
He proceeded to also call Mwanawasa Mwelewele.
I was not happy. I thought that even
They
up to now,
the presidency.
even up to now, I feel very bad when we have young people. I mean, I've been in politics, ambassador, actively since 2015, August. I have never insulted any elder in politics. I can't bring myself to whether I'm so upset. And trust me, Ambassador, I really get upset.
Yeah.
There are moments I've been very unhappy. There are moments you've heard where I've walked out of meetings, including when I was chair, when the political parties would do a press conference and denounce me. But I've never insulted, not President Lungu, and even when I wrote a letter to my friend as a young student, then when he was managing editor, as he was calling himself then, it was just expressing my displeasure that we cannot have big people use such language. Because then what example are they showing us to the young people?
Yeah, yeah.
And unfortunately, Ambassador, this is what we see now.
In fact, this is where I want now to transition.
Yes.
How does Golden Party get formed? Because between 2011 and 2015, you say, let me build my business to fend my family.
Business and my family, exactly. What happened is I'm at Findek, I'm full-fledged business. During this period, I've bought my first car. So it's not like a business. I'm in the process of buying my first plot. My son is on the way, or is born. My firstborn, Jackson, Sunga Silavwe. And I feel I'm doing my best to look after my young brides. I'm away from politics. I'm just concentrating on business and also serving the Lord at church. In the process, I'm appointed the chairperson for the youth. Now I'm a member of Bread of Life. I've made a transition in 2005 from CMML to Bread of Life. I've been appointed lay pastor as well, as we are coming to that. So things are pretty going good for me. Until I received a call from a gentleman who was very known to me. He says, "But President," he says, "my friend," he's called me Balida. Balida Mnikwisa. I said, "I'm at the office." He says, "Can we come tomorrow?" "Can I come tomorrow?" I said, "No problem, you pass through." So the following day he comes, Ambassador. He comes with this gentleman that I don't know. So this gentleman introduces himself as Humphrey Lumbwe. I'm Lumbwe. This other gentleman is Chendagath, whom I knew. And then they tell me, no, that's 2014. Let's 2013, we're about to go into 2014. Says, "Balida, you cannot stay away from politics." I said, "No, listen, my son has just been born. We're trying to make home with my wife and things like that. My wife is on leave. She's just been also being appointed in the civil service as a teacher." I said, "You know what, I'm not really looking forward to. And I think the politics now, I'm not really. General, obviously, we knew things are not okay. I can't go back to heritage. You know, occasionally you notice that time you would write an article in the paper, if you remember those times. So I knew if I go there, then of course I resigned, I wrote a letter. What do I do? That time, Dr. Nevas Mumba, there are things, MMD, there has to be a transition, and of course Dr. Nevas Mumba was the talk of the town. What do we do? I told my colleagues, I said, guys, if I'm going to join politics, there has to be a different vision. Because if I listen to MMD, I'm listening to PF, they're sort of saying the same thing. So we were at home. So I'm thinking myself, I'm telling the colleagues who had walked into my office that morning, that if I join politics, there has to be a different vision.
Yeah.
And then Humphrey asked me to say, sort of asked all of us to say, what kind of a vision are we looking for? Of course, what vision are you looking for you to join politics? I said, okay. Then Humphrey himself answered that it has to be, actually I'm the one who answered. I said, I think it has to be a developed Zambia after 50 years, since we are in the year of Jubilee, 50 years.
Oh, this is 2014.
2014. And when we said that, we knew that's supposed to be our political vision. And of course, we didn't rush to forming a party. We said, which political party has got that kind of a vision? Specifically that. We couldn't. We thought maybe we should give it a try to Dr. Nevas Mwamba. Dr. Nevas Mwamba, really, I don't remember him recasting a new vision apart from the MMD, apart from we have learnt lessons, what and what. So we thought, okay, we're not going to go to MMD. What about PF? We said, PF, we don't know. But Michael is a populist. I remember he just says things and, the drive. Do you think you really do well?
Yeah.
And all that. So we said, okay, I think it's a vision. Let's begin to work on it. So we formed a discussion group, added people from Finland, a friend of mine called Mubangama Kumba. He was in Finland. There was a gentleman we knew that he was affiliated with the UPND. Forgotten his name, but he was in London. Then we had Professor Charles Mwewa, who actually came up with the name. And we began to talk about all this. Maybe it may interest you also that we also had a gentleman called Kelvin Ambweza.
Oh, Kelvin, yes. Yes.
One of the meetings we had at Protea, he actually came in a short, me, I'm a farmer.
Yeah.
So where he is now, Kelvin Ambweza. He was part of that initial discussion, talking. We had people like Magima Palo, Boniface,
people that were thinking of forming a new political party outside the current.
At that time, we were not even just talking about it. We were just talking about a discussion, what Zambia we want, objectives. And of course, we had note takers, especially our friend who was in Finland. He's the one who, whatever we discuss, he would put them into orderly and read out, say, these guys, this is what we... So then we agreed, okay, guys, let's form a political party with that vision. Hence the vision of Golden Party of Zambia. A developed Zambia. That's what we focused on. And we say we believe...
So why didn't you consider issues of tax or poverty alleviation?
No, they are there. Because if you are going to have a developed country, then you have
you
have to look at all that. And we thought, what would be our strong point? We said the economy. Imagine, this is 2014. We told ourselves, I think we need to focus. So when you look at almost half of our manifesto, it's centered on the economy. Having a producer country, productive country, we've got economic outcomes, expected economic outcomes. We came up with all these things. We worked on the constitution. One of the senior members of our country, senior citizen, actually described that you've got, I think, the best constitution.
I need to take time and read it.
You need to read it, yes. We've got the best.
Who developed it?
Yes. All of us had input, but of course major input was from Professor Charles from Canada, still in Canada up to now. And there was a lot of input. We borrowed a lot from the Christian Democratic Party of Germany, being social democrats. We are social democrats. We are a center-left party. We are not pure left. We are not right. We are center-left. We believe in that there has to be a mixture of government programs, the private and government to come together to protect especially the vulnerable. That is why also there was I had a soft spot for Michael Sata because of that. Because coming from the background I've just told you where we suffered quite a lot, I sort of sympathize with the little guy in our community where they do not have hope. So that is why we believed in that. But eventually registration happened in 2016.
2 years.
2 years later. Because it was just contributions.
I see.
I was elected chairman then of the group. we sort of replicated the group of the New Heritage Party, the core group. So we also had a core group.
Yeah.
Then eventually when we reached registration, my colleagues, I remember Maggie came to my office then and says, why don't you just lead us? Because there's no one who's going to step up. Because there's also this syndrome in Zambia. You can start something together, but immediately now you want to make it a reality, then people begin.
Because there is political implications.
Develop cold feet.
Yeah. The political atmosphere is kind of brutal.
Exactly.
It's not soft. So even when people want a better Zambia, they want someone else to do it.
Exactly.
They don't know that it has to be done by them.
Exactly, Ambassador.
And remember, our politics are so soiled. They're very dirty. So good people keep away. They don't want to go in the mud pool.
No wonder President Michael Sata said the educated are cowards.
You may have to forgive them.
Yes.
You may have to
but
forgive
yes, you are
them.
sympathize. I mean,
because the environment is extremely brutal out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we registered...
So did you participate in the 2016 election?
Yes, I did. So when we
Did you stand as president?
I stood as member of parliament.
Okay.
Because my strategy then was, or our strategy then, we said, if we can get into parliament, our voice will be amplified. And if we can also demonstrate somewhere that we are capable. So we said, what would be our manifesto? Where do we think we can have chance? We knew Lusaka was out of question. So one of my friends says, you know what? One of our leaders said, you know what? Why don't you go back to Mufila? You are known there, you are the son, you've spent all your formative years there. So you go back there. So I went back to Mufila, believing, okay, I think we can do something. And trust me, we sent the team on the ground to collect what do you think should be our manifesto. We gathered. Ambassador, up to now, we had the best manifesto. We had the best manifesto. I went round. You know, apart from what you are saying, campaign can be very enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
I found it very fun, very fulfilling. I think very humbling as well. You know, meeting people and they tell you their problems face to face, that cuts you.
Yeah.
If you are in politics for the people, that changes you, Ambassador. It's not something that you can even boast about.
But our voters are now quite smart. They know politicians come once in 5 years.
In 5 years, and that's a big complaint on the ground.
There is highly monetized. The trouble you meet immediately is people looking for money from you.
Oh yes, it's a big reality. And imagine, I'm not to that level where you have a lot of finances. I'm balancing my family. At least I'm not sleeping hungry. But then you get into this field where people say, you've spoken well, but tushireni kofe, the famous yamesh. But we kept on, and when the results came, I was confident that we were going to carry the day. But then Evans Chibanda, your former member, Dr. Evans Chibanda, carried the day. He celebrated like he's won the presidency because we gave him really a tough time.
Oh, okay.
If you ask him.
That's good. What were the numbers?
I came out number 3.
Okay.
From the UPND. Of course, Dr. Evans had, he was a landslide. It was a landslide. He won with about, I think, above 10. Followed by UPND, Elijah Biete, then myself. I was a number 3, then FDD, then the independent candidate.
Okay.
So I accepted.
Good baptism.
It was a good baptism. Unfortunately, in 2021, we had, like you were saying, it's big money. According to our budget, we estimated that for you to make a dent, you needed about $5 million United States dollars. I know it's bigger for you to do something. So we had that budget. We applied somewhere, we applied to these people, and they said, oh, we help. At the last minute, they said, no, we cannot. So we were on our own. So again, I went back to my leaders. We call our a national board. I said, colleagues, then we had the Secretary General, Dr. Steve Mwale. I said, colleagues, we had Engineer Chiwele and the others. I said, what do we do? I can afford to pay nomination fee. But what happens?
Yeah,
because remember, I'm coming from the experience of
2011.
Of 2011, where you pay nomination fee. We never, not even a meeting, a meeting to say, let's go to Chilanga or anywhere. We're simply just there. The only thing we distribute were the posters.
Yeah.
I would go to a bus, say, vote for Genomi and Jackson Silavwe, part of the core group. And the but okay, vote, things like that. So I asked the leaders, I said, do you want us to go for the presidency? The leaders said no. Since you started with Mufila, remember the thinking. You started with Mufila and you came out number 3. I think we can do better now. You see, our strategy was, let's get into parliament. From parliament, amplify our voice. So that people can see, because the limelight will be on us. So we are damned with the formula, if you can say that. Just one member of parliament.
Would do.
So again, I went in, self-sponsored ambassador through our business. My wife would be the one who would work, send a bit, but we managed it well. We didn't have a lot of campaign. I mean, PF was brutal in terms of campaign material. We felt your weight in Mufila. Again, we went in, the same thing we did, went into the community without even them knowing. We gathered information on the manifesto again. And guess how our manifesto focused on jobs? Because we felt that was what Mufila Central needed. If you go to Mufila Central, the biggest business is Buzz, ambassador. That's where,
because the mining sector is limping and
exactly. So I thought I talked about constituency farms. Can we talk about, we are by the border. So we said, why don't we open up a shed? Because remember, now in Mufila Central, what happens? If you have got a good yield, the Congolese will come and buy your field before you even harvest. So we said, instead of this cat and mouse business, why don't we put up a shed where they can come, we bring our produce. So we had all these, we had about maybe 15 or so, if I look at the manifesto. Unfortunately, when the results came out, this time were a lot. That time we should have been 7. This time I think we were maybe 10, 11 or something. We tumbled. And it was very bad.
But let's speak briefly. When you form the party, the nation sees you under ZCID.
Yes.
And you are instrumental.
Oh, yes.
You, especially during the constitutional making process.
Of course.
We see your voice just begin to speak to that. Then you now have a door. You are meeting the leaders in Patriotic Front.
Exactly.
Brian Mundwele Kampiongo.
Including the president.
And President Edgar Lungu. You meet him and his staff and speak to that period.
Thank you. So 2017, remember I'm coming from an election of 2016. We've just had, like you said, the first baptism in politics. So I'm thinking, I said, we need to keep on amplifying our voice. Then I remember, there's an institution, that Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue. If you remember, President Mwamba held the first presidential summit, if you remember, together with President Sata in the opposition, came together. It never been any other, apart from that first presidential summit. Casually dressed, and I find a programs officer, and I introduce myself. I'm Jackson. I'm coming from this party. Want to be our members? He says, no problem. She gives me the form. The form. We fill it in. I bring it back. Then I meet another programs officer who happens now to be the director now of ZCID, Doreen Njov Kagwe, and we begin to participate. Not a few weeks from there, there was a talk of submissions to the Public Order, amendments to the Public Order Act. And I must tell you, Ambassador, for those who don't know, if you look at the current bill, it's got a lot of our content. Because then the Secretary General, called Brian Gombwa, lawyer, very brilliant young lawyer, Ambassador, is now working in government. He had a way of seeing things. So when I sat with him at home, I said, we need to make a submission to ZCID because they're submitting a report to Zambia Law Development Commission, who will develop it and give a report to Ministry of Justice. And then we came up with this paper. I tell you, when we took it, even ZCID Secretariat said, you guys, you thought
you've done a good job.
If you've noticed the current political parties bill, it talks about spontaneous assembly. I don't know if you noticed that aspect. That is ours in our submission. Because we thought Zambia's democracy is growing to a level where you can't wait for a police
permit.
So we
and
can,
the rise in social media.
Exactly. So you can designate. So we submitted that we can designate an area, for example, within the High Court grounds. We can put it there, maybe 100 meters square. If a person feels aggrieved about something, even if they don't have a permit, they can just go there at a particular time, do their views, they come out, so that people don't keep
about expressing
yourself. So now, from that moment, I begin to attend ZCID's meetings. And I'm attending. We developed then the political parties bill from zero. We were holed up at Mika Convention Center. And there I begin to meet now these people I've just been seeing on TV. It was my first time to meet Honorable Mumbipiri, then MP for Munali. She comes in and the whole room is like she brings in the whole room. So I introduce myself. So when we are talking, she walks, we say, so I tell her I'm from Mufrila. So we begin to know each other. And I begin to hear rumors. Because I don't even know the structure of ZCID very well. Then I begin to hear, I think Silavwe can be. So I'm just hearing, an election is coming up. Silavwe should be our chairman. So somebody walks up to me and says, you are the next chairman. Then my predecessor, before then, he was just a colleague. Mr. Sakala, Edwin Sakala. He was the chairperson for political parties outside Parliament. As you know, ZCID is political parties in Parliament, political parties outside Parliament.
Yeah.
Both of them, political parties in Parliament, second who should sit on the board. Us, because we are a plenty who are outside Parliament, we elect to represent us on the board.
Yeah.
And to cut the story short, an election is held December 2017, 18th. Pastor Kwala tells me and says, you know what? I think we need you to come in. We've seen how you conduct yourself. I think we are going to support you. And I was humbled. I mean, I stood against the late Honorable Mike Mlongoti.
Yeah.
And I had the highest votes. And the
congratulations.
No bribery, no nothing, Ambassador.
Your hard work had paid off.
Yes.
Your commitment had paid off.
Because we were very committed. And my vice is Sean Tembo. I'm the chairperson. Sean Tembo is a vice. Of course, 2018 he resigns. Within the year, we had to elect again. That's how come we brought in Bahaivi. So again, we keep on pushing. You remember the ZCID didn't have a good name, so we keep on. Then 2018, the talks of dialogue starts.
Yeah, because now we have a constitutional making process.
Exactly.
Bill 10.
And it was a tense time.
How did you handle that?
It was
because now as chair, you have to speak to presidents of political parties.
It was. First now, I haven't moved to ZCID chair. I'm still chair of political parties outside Parliament. The chair for the entire institution is Nathan Mulonga, National Secretary for FDD. So we're thinking now, what do we do? The dialogue process has come. I got elected today, Ambassador. Following that, I was meeting His Excellency Gambari, if you remember, Professor Gambari, at Intercontinental.
Because
he had come in town to say you need to dialogue. Yes.
To our dear viewers, at a time, President Hakainde Hichilema was in jail for treason charges over the Mongu debacle. And the Commonwealth were accepted to mediate between President Edgar Lungu and, UPND and the rest, because it had brought political tension. The Commonwealth Secretary General was quite busy, so she appointed an alternative.
Yes,
who's now Professor Gambari. So you are working now.
I'm working. We haven't even done orientation, Ambassador, of board members. I got elected today. Following that, I think it was a Sunday, just to be called by the executive director. Then Monica Kanjima says, "Sir, you need to come and meet." She's giving me a briefing in the foyer. So the person you are meeting is what? So if you go to my Facebook, we are meeting with Dr. We took photos after having lunch. And he lays this plan and what and what and what. Now, I didn't want to lie to him. So I came out and I told him truthfully. I said, because, I had been now in politics, I'd known how my colleagues think.
Yeah.
Then I told him, I said, if you are going to come and impose a process, you are going to fail. And I'm sorry, he said something that made me upset, but I controlled myself. He said, I'm a professor. I know these matters. I said, so I told him.
What was his proposal?
The same roadmap where they wanted to. So I said, I think you cannot come and just say you're going to chair the process. What you need is first to consult all the stakeholders. Then come up with something. Yes. You're going to have problems. Ambassador, true. When I came out of that meeting, I called for all the political parties. We went to Fringilla, Chisamba, for a retreat. And I presented the document to them. I said, this is what the Commonwealth are asking. And there was an uproar in the meeting.
Yeah.
Whilst we were at Fringilla, State House made a comment and said, we are only, which I felt was quite unfortunate, we are only going to participate in this process if ZCID leads it. Because
they had the document that showed that Professor
we found now ourselves in the middle now. UPND as the strongest opposition also says, we will only participate in this process if Commonwealth chairs it.
There's a standoff.
There's a standoff. The colleagues in the board says, we need a face to be spokesperson. To tell you the truth, just like what happened when I got elected as chairperson, never solicited for a vote. Colleagues turned and said, Jackson will be the spokesperson. I said, what? From the board meeting, if you've noticed, we go, if you see the photos, to the press which is waiting for a new spokesperson. Yeah. And Mamulonga introduces me as a spokesperson. In the presence of the other board members, Dirafeo Nakachinda, Dr. Chola Behani, then from the UPND was representing the UPND. And it was a process. It's something that I've told me I should never go through that.
No, as a leader, you'll have to go through that again and again. It was
tedious. If I tell you, Ambassador, the constant headache, people never knew that when you are talking to me, I had a constant headache every time you are speaking to me. But you just manage it.
Yeah.
Because it was terrible. There was a change of position. What I found nerve-wracking was the conduct of the UPND president then. First, it started on the board. We noticed that every time we agreed on something, our friends will change the position.
So who was in the meeting? President?
Then before first we went to the president. So we actually agreed to say maybe the principals are not receiving the correct information. Can we start now talking to the
heads?
To the heads themselves. So we had meetings, we had meetings that even the nation doesn't know about.
Yeah.
We would lock ourselves somewhere. The change of position. But let me talk about the one which is open in public. The famous Siavonga meeting.
Now, at this stage, we are crafting the butane and the law. Yeah. President Hakainde is out of prison, I think.
He's out of...
Patricia Scotland, they've managed...
Yes, we have not even come to butane. This time, we are coming up with what issues do we need to dialogue. Because if you remember, the UPND said, no, we cannot dialogue just for the sake of a handshake.
Yeah.
So it was so tedious that we had to go see Dr. Kaunda. Said, can you help us? What do we need to do? He gave us his wisdom, to say. But the main message he told us, he says, we did it. As young boys, I can see you're all young here. We did it. So it's your time. But don't forget, do it for the country. We went to to President Rupia Banda also. He also gave us a lot of wisdom. So we felt armed. So we said, colleagues, let's go out of Lusaka. So we carried each other to Siavonga. Then we agreed on everything.
What were the issues you had identified
Issues of
that
the
was,
Public Order Act.
bringing tension in the country?
Yeah, proportional representation, all those things. And there were quite a number of them. And for the sake of not being misunderstood, UPND was represented by the Justice Minister, Haimbe, right now, who is the Justice Minister now.
Haimbe, yes.
He was the legal counsel for UPND, with Dr. Cholobiani and forgotten the other name. It will come back. It's very dear to me. It will come. These are the people that represented. So we gave them a task to say, you are the one who is going to craft the press statement. Because the press were waiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we gave them, they did their consultations. They are the ones who drafted the Siavonga. They brought it.
Literally Siavonga code.
Yes, we looked at it. Because the Siavonga is very important. It was the basis of butane. People don't know that. It was the basis of butane.
Okay.
So we communicated to the press. We were very happy. There were hugs. We even went on a boat cruise, Ambassador, after the announcement. It was a joyous because we had been in these meetings that maybe one day I'll talk about. We had been in these meetings where we would shout at each other, where we would walk out on each other. But this time we agreed.
You had built a sufficient consensus.
When we came back, UPND changed the position.
They said they didn't agree with the document.
They said they didn't agree.
But they had drafted the response.
And if you remember, we now had to release the document, including signatures. And one of the saddest times I've had in the UPND, I called the UPND, they are lying through their teeth. It was carried by the Daily Mail, if I remember then. And I remember Bawinta was not happy. Actually says no. When we went to see him, because we continued to meet presidents one by one, yes. He actually expressed to say you shouldn't have said that, which I felt it was too strong. He says, no, this is dialogue. We shouldn't have come out that way. But it reached the level of treachery from our colleagues was alarming. Because you can be in a board meeting, you agree. Then they disown you that, no, we never agreed.
Wow. And you found that strange.
It was. I've told you my upbringing.
Yes,
where I'm coming
because
from.
In our current politics,
yes,
many leaders are two-faced. We would meet in private, hug and talk and speak like family. As soon as the cameras are on, we speak like vicious enemies.
But Ambassador, do you know what's really dejected me? Is the level of hate.
Yeah.
I remember we were in a meeting, and I think President Hakainde Hichilema, I remember that meeting. And I looked at me, we were seated the way we're seated. In fact, straight. I was on the other side of the table, I was on the side of the table. And I looked at him. That time, Chon Tembo had already resigned. Hamdudu was my vice, so he was seated next to me.
You had gone to see him?
No. We had a closed-door meeting. The people didn't even know about it. Yes, there was myself, President Hakainde Hichilema. We were at Pamozi Hotel, upstairs, that executive room. There was Ba Davis, Mundubile. There was Hamdudu himself, Felix Mutati, Winter Kavimba, Edith Nawakwi. So the major political parties, I was representing the political parties outside Parliament. I looked to the president and I said, President Hakainde, why are you so brutal on our fellow opposition political parties? You've insulted us. Remember the famous surrogates. You have surrogates of the PF.
Were you surrogates of the PF?
No, we were not. Not
you
even
personally,
in the list. No.
Were you a surrogate of the PF?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. One of the things my colleagues will tell you in ZCID, if you are wrong, you are wrong.
Yeah.
If you are right, you are right. There are meetings that used to come near punch-ups. In ZCID, I'm chairing people. But when we come out, I would make sure we come up with a resolution. When we come out, we present a front to say, these are the resolutions.
Speak to your confrontation with President Hakainde Hichilema.
And I look to him and he's sitting across the table. I say, why are you calling us surrogates? I don't think that's all right. And I went on to say, you are creating a monster that should you become president, this is a monster that you failed to tame. Do you know what his response was?
Mm.
He says, for me, if he did this hands, the way I'm doing like this, for me, if your view is similar to the PF, I'll lampoon you to the PF. He even did like this.
Yeah.
I went back home, I told my wife, I said, President Hakainde Hichilema cannot unite the country. He was in the opposition. I told her that if she remembers. I said, there's no way a national leader who is going to unite the people. Just because Mwamba, your view is similar to the producers, I cannot say then you are a producer.
Yeah.
President Ivy Amdudu said, Chair, from now on, you and Hichilema, you'll never become friends.
Wow.
He doesn't like being challenged the way you have done. And up to now, I've never seen the president, for example. One of the last things I did as ZCID chair, I was right to him that I wanted to have audience because we came up with a document based on the things we thought, we call it expectations from political parties to help him settle, to find foot as he begins to engage in national matters. There was not
as
even
new president.
As new president. And there were very few, I think 7 issues, Public Order Act, issues of the economy, issues of jobs for the young people. We brought that.
No, you may also need to understand the larger context. Is that the faith in ZCID has fallen. And hence, for example, the rise in the political alliance, the UPND alliance. When they are coming to an institution like ZCID, they are bringing the non-opinion to ZCID.
It was bad.
Yeah.
UPND was brutal.
ZCID requires that we provide proper capacity to it. You may not need alliances if ZCID works very well. Of course, in elections you need alliances for one reason or another. But you need a strong ZCID. For example, if there's political tension.
And Zambia needs ZCID. People don't realize that. Zambia needs ZCID.
So the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, as it was formed, when there's political tension, you step up and call, for example,
dialogue, yes.
Government leader, the president and opposition leaders, you should be able to convene to a summit.
Maybe Ambassador, let me tell you now, remember this is now, I've made this transition.
Yeah.
Then the term for Mr. Nathan Mulonga comes to an end. It ends at a point at the lowest when ZCID fails to bring President Lungu and President Hakainde Hichilema of the opposition together. Remember, it just collapses. The church also takes us on a different tangent. One of the breaking points, you may not know what made us to just say, no, I think this thing is not going anywhere. UPND forms an alliance. And they say, remember they are saying, no, the church should chair. PF and the others saying, no, ZCID should be at the same. We have an institution for dialogue.
Yeah.
If the church comes in, let them just come for support. So we agree in the framework. We even do the organogram, everything. We are remaining, Ambassador, with just penning one letter, one-paged memorandum of understanding. I want you to follow me. That's 2019. The church even calls for a meeting at the cathedral. I don't know if you remember that meeting of the Holy Cross. I'm at ZCID offices at 23 hours. The program is out. Arrival of His Excellency, the President, Defense Chiefs. I'm looking at it. We are pushing to sign that MOU. The church stops answering. And when I say the 3 church mother bodies leaders, they stopped answering calls. I was called by Bamumbipiri and said, we are seated with the President, Jackson. You are a spokesperson. What should we do? Should we go for this meeting?
Are they coming?
Are they coming? So I gave an honest opinion. And she told me, I'm on speaker. I said, Vamayo, that's how I fondly call her. I said, Vamayo, you know the acrimony and the tension we've gone through the past 2 years. We don't know what His Excellency will expose himself to if he goes to cathedral. We have a one-paged MOU we failed to sign with the church. I cannot tell His Excellency to go or not. But we have this process. And we invested a lot into it. And the church has refused to sign it. It's up to you. The meeting came the following.
In your view, did the church refuse to sign it?
One word. There was a lot of mistrust, Ambassador. I've never seen that level of mistrust. And unfortunately, that mistrust has continued.
Of course.
Up to now. Our church leaders, our own, they couldn't trust us. I remember the chair complained bitterly then was by Nathan Mulonga. I says, but one of the chairpersons for the church mother is my bishop in the church. He can't even talk to me to say, can you come? What is this that you are trying to do? And then the church wanted to, remember the famous duo now of Father Chikoya and Father Cleophas Lungu, who was the Secretary General for ZCID. They went now around to rebuttal. So it became, we say something, they also send something. We go to this studio, they are at Hot FM. They are at Hot FM, they are at Prime TV.
No, they needed to protect themselves and defend themselves, We
were branded, no, they just want to put on expensive suits and what and what. I mean, it was really, really terrible. But when that happened, the church went ahead. Personally, I called Father Chikoya. He answered close to midnight. I said, Reverend Canon, we have an opportunity to save this. Let's link up. You and I, let's meet. Let's see how we can correct this. Because tomorrow, the following day, that meeting should have been the icing on the cake that we have achieved the dialogue process. He said, I'll call you after 7 minutes. He never called. Called back, he didn't pick. I'm waiting at home. My own Secretary General for Golden Party calls and says, I'm at Cathedral. I said, what are you doing there? He said, sir, what do you mean? I said, the president
to have a meeting for political party.
Is not coming. Because now I've got information by morning. The whole state system has said, we are not going to that meeting. The church now found themselves with the UPND alliance. You remember very well. They poured salt on the charcoal for unity and what and what. Then they had the famous Kabelenga meeting, if you remember. Again, we didn't go there. And that time, the dialogue process collapsed. Mamulonga comes out of ZCID. I'm elected. Ambassador, I didn't want. Because now I know what is happening. Mamulonga steps down. It wasn't even, there were supposed to be 2 candidates. The board just said, Jackson, you need to take over. And everyone said, no, it's all right, Jackson can go. And we started. My main focus then was to ensure that ZCID first internally becomes strong. So there was a lot of policy issues. We drafted policies because everything was expired. Apart from that now, that's when you saw me now start visiting presidents. Because if you remember, Dr. Kambwili said, I don't want anything to do with ZCID. Narep then, Andaba Nyerenda also said the same thing. But Kalaba was upset. Because the narrative was pushed by the UPND that all of us were what?
UPND,
PF surrogates.
PF surrogates.
So now when we interacted, I mean, President Savoy, NDC now president, she played a huge role. Because I couldn't get Kuriba Kambwili. I had his number, but when I called him, he wouldn't even pick. Now I'm chairman now for the entire institution. So I talked to Madame Savoy. I says, I want you to help us. So she says, no problem. So I explained, because even as she had the same view. So I explained to her, then she says, no, we are being misled here. That's when she even opened up that time. She says, do you know what? I think we are also coming out of the alliance. I knew that information before they even came out. Because the level, we've just discovered that the level of treachery is not okay. So, to cut the story short, that's why you see the famous photo, Ibaka Biline short, me I'm in a suit.
Greeting him.
Greeting him. Yes, I'm in a suit at his home. But eventually we began to mend bridges, and before long, people started coming back to ZCID. Just when we felt...
No, you must have learned, for us watchers of history...
Exactly.
That during the build-up to elections, forces come together.
Yes.
The forces, while you were being undermined, the forces that had come together against Edgar Lungu were very, very strong.
Well, very, extremely.
So to win an election you need to mobilize the similar forces
Yes.
from workers, civil society, the church. And at that stage, the forces were responding to UPND. So when you come with rationality,
yes,
it
yes.
must have been surprising you that people don't want to rationalize with you.
It was because for me, I'm from the background. Red is red.
Yeah, yeah.
Black is black. If
Oh,
it's
no.
wrong, whether I mean, even the time President Lungu, the same one they accused me that he was, we were the surrogates. There was a time he was not happy with me.
Yes.
I'm seated in the office in ZCID and receive a letter. I will not say who signed it, but I knew it was from State House. And they were not happy about the statement I had made. So I wrote back explaining, and I think the explanation was satisfactory. And the letter came back, this time copied to the principal private secretary. So I knew who was upset with my position. But to cut the story short, I believe in such kind of dialogue. And we agreed this issue should not go to the press because they'll just misunderstand it.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe to say something that may interest you. For me, it was the contrast. I couldn't help but compare. Remember, I'm coming from this background where I'm not really to have these biases or anything. I'm really pushing because I feel this is the right thing to do for the nation. But I couldn't help it, Ambassador, to compare President Hakainde Hichilema and
what was your
Lungu,
comparison?
yes, Dr. Lungu. I remember when this whole thing, the insult started attacking us opposition, surrogates and what. You know, I wrote an email to President Hakainde Hichilema. I asked Bamuchaleka, who said, no, write an email. And you know what I wrote? I simply wrote to him, can I organize a meeting for you? I volunteered. Can I organize a meeting for you as political parties in the opposition so that you can come and address us? So that if you've got concerns, I even said you are like our head, our firstborn.
Yeah.
It was never replied to. It was never replied to.
When you wrote to President Lungu?
When I wrote President Lungu would request. Imagine I'm just this young guy who has only got the mandate of his colleagues, the political parties. And they believed so much. I received one time a call through Honorable Kampyongo, then if I remember, Chair, where are you? I said, I'm home. He said, can you come? I went to a place where they told me to go. I found 4 or 5 ministers there. And guess the vehicle I was driving? I was driving a Vitz Ambassador. And then they told me, no, the president has requested to consult the board. I said, really? He says, yes. And that was like the 10th of the year. We're getting into, it was the first. We went there and we found the president there. And there was nothing like, colleagues, what do we do or anything? He just said, what is your view? And we would tell him, we even tasked him, why are you not meeting President Hakainde Hichilema? So he says, yeah, I'm open. He says, we don't know you colleagues. I called him for a meeting. When I called him, he was talking about political prisoners. I asked him, political prisoners in Zambia, give me a list of 10. Up to now, he has not given me the list. So I couldn't help the contrast. The other one is the head of state, but he was displaying more humility than the one who was in the opposition. It was quite something for me.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know, when we say young people must participate in politics.
In politics, yes.
When we say the baton must be passed on, is that we have these new perspectives.
Exactly.
There should be more Jackson Silavwes in politics.
Now, to cut the story short, Ambassador, I'm chairman now. Commonwealth comes back. Now, remember that hardly 3 years ago, we have had the failed dialogue process, and I acknowledge we failed. But this time now, we are in 2020, going to 2021. A big election is coming. I'm chair. The machinations wanted to start. This time, I'm chair for the entire organization. No, we can only... I went to the board, Ambassador, and I said, there will be no discussion of who chairs this process.
That's a settled matter.
what we are going to do, we are going to co-chair the church and ZCID. I wrote a letter. I told my executive director, then Doreen Kabo, can we write a letter to the church? We wrote the letter to the church. The church agreed. The first meeting we had at ZCID, where Madam Patricia Scotland was, she couldn't believe it. Remember, we failed.
Yeah, you had
So
failed
when she
3 years
also
before.
came, she was also what she didn't know what was to expect. Then we walk in together with Father Chikwe, hand in hand, side by side.
Yeah.
And we tell her we are ready to move, and we've agreed that this process. She quoted the scripture, how good and pleasant it is when believers dwell in unity.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
We agreed.
So the Christian
And
principle
it
came
worked.
on.
Before we could realize UNDP has come in, that's why you saw, before the general election, I'm seated at Mulungushi. We have got Laz, the youth. We compelled all of you political parties to sign a peace pledge.
Yeah, the peace pledge. Yeah.
The
That was
peace-
a
remember
wonderful
the-
thing.
yes.
But they said, one
It's
of
one
the
of my,
hallmark
my major
yes.
achievements that to my name. I even have the original copy. I've kept it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
asked
you
for
have
one
to.
original copy. And it
Although
was,
the violence somehow
it
erupted
was,
in that election.
I felt bad
lost
when, in
Jackson
particular, when I
Kungo.
heard of Jackson Kungo. You see the statement I wrote there. I really felt bad because we tried. We really tried.
Yeah. But before I let you go,
Yes.
we have a tradition here. You read a lot. You didn't live in the times of Dr. Kaunda.
Yes, I did.
You lived in the times of Chiluba. You could have been young, but you lived in the times of Mwanawas and others.
Yes,
But we have a tradition here where we review. So some of your views may come even from literature.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So let's start with Dr. Kaunda. What are your views?
I love the man. There's nothing
And you had an opportunity to meet him.
I had an opportunity, rare opportunity to meet him. It was so surreal. I remember then our director then at ZCID was Monica Kanjiman. She didn't even know whether to kneel to stand when greeting him.
Yeah.
It was so humbling. And he did this thing of laying his hands on you.
I'm blessing you.
It was beautiful. It's something that I'll always cherish, treasure.
His rule, have you read about it?
I'm a student of development studies, so you know literature is our forte, is our strength. I've read immensely. And yes, he may have his own mishaps there, but for me, there's nothing, I hold him in very high esteem. Having been a political leader these number of years, I get to put myself what he was going through to gain independence. If we can go through what we... Ambassador, I've received death threats before. I've written about this. During the dialogue process, Zambian Watchdog writes that Jackson Silavwe has received 500,000 from State House.
Of course, to create mistrust first amongst your colleagues.
Yes, and you remember Zambian Watchdog then was the biggest online media. There was no Smart Eagles or Kalemba or Mwebantu. They are the ones who carried that torch. And Ambassador began to receive death threats. We'll kill you, we'll kill your wife, we know where you stand. And in then that process, my wife is having complications with our second baby. I'm sleeping on the floor to be with my wife. In the night, I'm with my wife at the hospital. In the morning, I put on my suit to attend to dialogue matters.
And Watchdog is saying
And Watchdog is saying I've
500,000.
got 500. Then just barely 2-3 days ago, we've just gotten a loan to sponsor the C-section of my wife. Because
can't
we
even
did
afford
not have enough savings. That is the level of politics we have in Zambia. And on top of that, my wife is checking the phone is ringing every time. And she's asking me, she's in pain. What's wrong? Are they calling you to office? I said, no, it's nothing. How am I going to tell a woman who is about to have a life and death surgery that you are being threatened, that people are going to kill you? We know your Kasan. You know, they would say, tell your son by name, we're killing you. The blood which will be in this country is on your head.
Oh yeah, death threats are terrible.
It's
Sometimes
terrible,
our
yes.
people don't know what we go through.
So when I compare with Dr. Kaunda, I have a lot of respect. Unfortunately, I'm not the person who can say anything wrong against him. I'm sorry, I'm not the one.
Wonderful.
I will leave others to make those
those
commentaries,
wonderful. Dr. Chiluba?
I love the man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was now in my formative years, he's the only president we knew.
Mm. Why are you humbled when you want to speak about Dr. Chiluba?
I never met Dr. Chiluba in person. I've read a lot about him. The least I got to know him is when I was a student at David Counter.
Yeah.
Right in the election year of 2000. It's 2001.
Yeah.
Then, I don't know, that morning, one of my friends said, let's go worship at Dunamis.
Yeah.
Dunamis used to send a bus to DK.
When they were at behind Fire's house or at Intercontinental?
Yes, Fire's house.
Behind Fire's
Yes.
house, yeah.
The bus came and we went. Then all of a sudden we're in worship and Dr. Pule stood up and said, can everyone stand? And they dimmed the light. And the president walked in. And I was seated in the second row. He didn't come with a large entourage. That was the closest I got. I never met him. But why I feel this, I've spoken about it. I feel we didn't treat that man well. This is not the first time I've talked about this. Go to my videos where I've talked about Dr. Chiluba. We are a brutal nation, Ambassador. I don't know, maybe the young people born in 2000s don't know him. I remember where we were coming. I was very young with my father in Mpika. The excitement when he became president, when Dyna Clipper buses came. When we came from Mpika to from Mufrila to Mpika, we got on a UBZ
bus. That would take days.
I remember when Dr. Chiluba came in, then the famous DCM buses came. The joy and happiness. And then I saw how we treated him as a nation, displaying his underpants. A former Republican president. He didn't deserve that. Then you try him for years, over 500,000 United States dollars. Then you discover he had more than $7 million in that same account, audited. I've been to, I just feel this nation, we need a way to relate with ourselves. And all these things are just lies. We have today's situation where your former president is squatting in a house which is not his. And we are so happy. And you've got young people online busy saying, hey, just kill him or do what? Where have we missed it, Ambassador?
The story of Dr. Chiluba is very painful to me.
It is, because I've read it. I've got books.
Yeah, I had to literally carry the cross to tell his story.
Yes, that's how come I knew about you.
Yeah.
Because how is this person who is so loyal to Dr. Chiluba when he's going through all these things?
Yeah.
Because he never had friends.
Yeah.
Literally, you would walk the two of us to and from the court.
So when I rise to the defense of, for example, President Edgar Lungu, for me, it is a story of Noah. Noah is drunk, and the three children come, and one laughs at the father.
At the father's nakedness, yes.
The others pick a blanket and cover the nakedness of Noah. I think that's what we need.
It's true.
That if our elders are in shame, we cover them. We don't laugh at their nakedness.
No, we do not.
But there is that evil spirit in our country.
It
usually
is.
not based even on the truth.
No, it's not.
Where we have to humiliate our leaders.
And disparage them.
And just literally destroy them.
Ambassador, I was watching a video of Donald Trump. This is a man who is being accused of some of serious crimes in the history of America. And yet, if you look just at even the level of his protection detail, it equals or even surpasses the current president, Joe Biden. Because they've realized that if this presidency is exposed, then the whole country is exposed. But we are living in a country now where people cannot even go to President Chiluba and say, sir, this is wrong. Personally, if I'm president, I cannot sleep. Knowing my predecessor is not in the house for the state. I even have information that only a volunteer said, can you go and squat here for the sake of your peace? I can't sleep, President, Ambassador. That same night, he would find me at his house telling him, can we come to an agreement?
No, thanks for that.
The level of bitterness in this country, when you're not in politics, you can't see it. Sometimes I see people
the divisions.
Social
media is a reflection and mirror of our society. So the deep divisions, you can see them on social media. There are times when you and I will just post a scripture and just look at the insults.
The insults.
The scripture. I'm blessing you.
So that's why I feel strongly. I feel we didn't treat Dr. Chiluba well. I've said this before, and every time I mention him, I feel bad because, and we treat it as if it's normal. It's not. It's not normal.
Mwanawasa.
I love him. It's Ichibumba. Incentive to Posterity by Amos Malupenga, the book he wrote. I didn't know him so much the time he was president, but I think in the aftermath of that book, when I read it, I sort of saw myself in him. I don't like lies. I don't like situations where people begin to say all that kind of things. The discipline, the concentration on the Zambian people, which we never saw when he was alive, and only began to see it afterwards. I think that was remarkable. He did well for this country. Come to Dr. President Banda. Well,
he never arrived. He never arrived
because that story, I'm sure General will take it up in his memoirs. But I love the man. President for Zambians, that's how I always know him. I was privileged to speak after he died. ZNBC invited me. And I was very humbled because he was just this wonderful man. A lot of wisdom. He was very concerned about the political temperature in our country. Maybe you may not know that, how I discovered that he was actually ailing. I'd written him as chair, I'd written to him asking for his help to bring President Hakainde Hichilema and
President
Lungu together. Then one of the aides whispered to me and says, no, we will tell him, no, he's actually for treatment. He's gone for treatment. So I said, what about it? He says, no. That's when I got to know about it. But when he came back, he did respond, saying that he would love the opportunity, and of course, buttressed his health was not all right, but he would do everything possible to help. People close to him, told him that he had a certain liking for me. When I met him, I shared that also. I also had I liked him a lot. He was a statesman, a patriot, and it's unfortunate he went through that terrible disease. And remember, one time we even talked about it. For you don't know, there's one time I visited him and we were talking about cancer, and he called it an evil disease.
I had a pleasure and opportunity to receive him when his wife, Madam Tandiwe, had that scare.
Yes.
And he would lament, this disease is evil.
It's evil. He used to use that word, yes.
Yeah, it took my first wife.
Yes.
Now it's affecting my wife. What's wrong with this disease?
So you've noticed that since then I've spoken about cancer a lot.
I think we need to raise awareness.
I've
it's a new disease that's
it.
Affecting our people, and our people, it's a new disease to us. We didn't have it. Yeah.
One of the last events we did as GPZ, as a party, we went to the children's ward in December. And just bought, because the situation is terrible. First of all, they couldn't even allow us to take videos. Someone from the system was there, but we took simple things like cotton wool, maeu, fruits. We prepared buckets to take to that. Probably also where my dissident for cancer is coming from. Also knowing my stepmother also died from it. She was at UTH Cancer Disease Hospital before she went to be with the Lord, and all that.
President Michael Sata?
Well, he will always remain our champion. Like I said, I'm very much biased towards the ordinary Zambians, and he spoke my language. My father, my late dad, Japheth, really loved him so much. Yeah, very much. I remember he was very upset when he lost, after he came out of MMD, when he lost his first election.
In 2006.
In the opposition, yes. My father was very upset. Man of action, he believed as well. So he always remained dear to me. I believe that he lived on, he would have left a very lasting. His legacy is there. You cannot argue with it. But I think he would have done more, much more.
Yeah.
Had he gone all the way to complete his terms.
Edgar Lungu
is a president I've come to know on a personal level. Like I said, from the time I joined politics, I've had an opportunity to speak. The humility is something that just takes you aback. You even wonder why you have President Hakainde Hichilema behave like that. A lot of things would be sorted out if he would just pick up a call and say, hey, can we meet? Let's sort out things. He's a wonderful human being. I know people don't know that part about him. I've laughed with him. And it's purely politics.
You know, when
he's a wonderful man.
Yeah, I interacted with President Edgar Lungu. He was Minister of Home Affairs. I was PS in Northern Province.
Yes.
But during the 2014 campaign,
then
that's when I saw his humility.
The humility.
And he had a terrible image out there.
Exactly.
I said,
that's the nature of our politics. Yes. We
In
paint
fact,
other
this
people
is
black.
his biggest hallmark, his humility. Because he would come and save you water.
Exactly.
He would save you wine. When you leave, he would walk with you outside.
The first time I met him, I made a complaint. The colleagues, we met him as a group. So the board said, Jackson, you're going to handle the famous meeting we met him at PF. That was my up-close meeting. So they said, Jackson, you're going to handle that we are not having access to him. So everyone spoke, the chairperson spoke and everything. Then it came to me. Then I said, Your Excellency, it's difficult to get hold of you. We are your colleagues. We know we are in the opposition, but there are things that maybe I want to pass a note.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was just about, until one time I found myself at State House. Then he reminded me, so you're at State House now, huh? You have access now, right?
Yeah.
I said, yes. I remember one time we were doing, 2021, I think, we were invited for prayers, national prayers. So I went there, and it wasn't really a heavy meeting. He was still head of state. But then someone from the system, but known to me, but I don't know him by name, but I know him. He just came to me and says, Chairperson. I said, yes. There were a lot of big bishops there. He says, no. I know this is the program for the church. But you're the only politician, at least senior, who is here. The president is your colleague. Can you go and receive him? So we rushed because he was about to arrive. So I arrived. I went to the end of the line.
Yeah.
So the man said, no. So he was the other side. He says,
Chairman, tetu mima ninoko, So
Yeah.
imagine now I walked past all the bishops and went to the friends. And when he came out, I thought maybe you go like, okay, what is he doing? He just went, oh, my friend, how are you? And then there were some issues that I had presented to him. And he just right there began, no, don't worry, but Davis will get in touch. So at this issue, we sort it out. And I'm feeling comfortable because all the bishops, is that humble?
Yeah.
And I believe that we can harmonize this before it's too late.
President Akainde Ichilema, the last you met was a confrontation.
It's a confrontation. Ever since I've written to him, even the time he's been head of state, let's meet. Unfortunately, not even the courtesy of replying. And Katek has had the same experience. The others have had the same experience. I even wonder how Winter Kavimba managed to get through. I wrote before I left, and deliberately I resigned from ZCID because I thought it was going to be acrimony. You know our politics. I had one more year as chairperson. So I said, our friends have had this perception about us. So instead of making ZCID a battleground, I went and just said, colleagues. They protested, a lot of colleagues protested. Just finish, you protect you. I said, no.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so far, the experiences I've had with him are not pleasant. Yeah.
Of course, you are here, wanted to profile you, understand you, but now you're a member of the United Kwacha Alliance. You didn't come for the United Kwacha Alliance, but why the United Kwacha Alliance? Why are you in the alliance?
If you asked me immediately after the general election that there could be an opportunity for us to work together, I'd have said no. I've been bent to grow the party. Like we've said, it's a lot of work in terms of resources and everything. I've been bent to say, okay, let's make our political mark. But ambassador, it's what is happening in our country. You can be divisive all you want. People are complaining. People are suffering. And one of them, who is known to me, just said, Jackson, find a way you can work together. And for people who don't know, the UK Alliance, or let me just say the Alliance, was not started by the PF. It was myself,
You can make it very clear.
President Savoy, and President Kateka.
What
The
was
three
your
of
vision?
us, we were just saying, let's work together to make stronger checks and balances. But the circumstances has found us that we need to make a broad-based coalition amongst the opposition political parties. That's how you found now the PF, everyone has come in and what. And so far, there's a unity in the group is wonderful. I was talking to President Harry Kalaba, who would say, you know what, he would say the same thing. I never thought we can work together.
Yeah.
But if you look at the situation in the country, it dictates that we need to come together. And this is the message I'm sending to the Zambian people. If us, who never saw working with each other just a few months back, can come together, what about you? And this should be bigger than just Baka in the Ichilema. It's about the core and the soul of the nation. If we are talking about people not having enough food to eat, if we are talking about people failing to afford essentials such as transport, they're failing to even just be able to buy soap, it's fundamentally something has gone wrong in the nation. So our colleagues may have their plans, but their plans are not then fit for this generation.
Yeah.
So we need to raise the standard of leadership in this country. And I believe this is what we have come to do as UKA, to work together and answer to the Zambian people, to the needs of the Zambian people. This is about the Zambian people. It's not even about, it's about the Zambian people, making sure they afford the basic essentials.
Good. Jackson Silavwe, we've had a wonderful walk.
Thank you.
With you, traversing the political history of our country. And because you are youthful, you are younger, your political history might have started far, far later, than the history of our country. But that's very refreshing, especially to the new generation, to hear one of them who's at the thick of things, air both your optimism, your hopes, aspirations, and also your frustrations with just what is happening to our country. What are your last words?
My last words, I would like to encourage the people of Zambia, come to this alliance. I know you've had a lot of misconceptions about alliances, but we mean well. We mean well.
Oh.
Let's work together. Let's, for once, look to those that are suffering. Jackson may afford a bag of meal, but behind Jackson, there are 1 million plus young people right now who are jobless. Behind Jackson, there are 2 million people today who go to bed without eating. Behind Jackson, right now, there are 3 million Zambians who are failing to pay 25 Kwacha transport, and they have to walk from town or from the industries or from wherever they do their piecework back home. And that is my word. Zambians, it's not about President Hakainde Hichilema's hate. I don't hate him. I have no reason to hate him. But we can work together for the good of the whole country.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'd like to thank you for sparing time and for finding time with our audience.
Thank you.
To our dear audience, we've come to the end of the program, and until we have another special guest who walks us through the history of our country, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the numbers and the sharing. Please continue to share. As soon as you see that live feed, just continue to share so that we discuss our history and the state of our country in a manner that builds this country, that makes us better. So God bless Zambia. God bless our country. Shalom, shalom.